some of my fondest memories with Steve are just doing improvisational guerrilla street theater.
I looked up at him as an older guy, but he looked up at me as somebody who knew more about comics.
He looked around at all these towers that Stan and Jack and Ditko and those guys built, and he bowed to them and then he knocked them all down, you know?
I have a personal story about Steve because he lived about 10 blocks north of me in West Side Manhattan. We also were, for several months, we had our therapy appointments on the same day, but separated by an hour. So my therapy appointment was at 1 o'clock to 2 o'clock, and Steve's therapy appointment was at 4 o'clock to 5 o'clock. We would meet for coffee between our therapy appointments and just chat. I was usually processing my therapy stuff, and Steve was thinking about the things that he wanted to talk about. But one time, near the end of the time that Steve was in New York, he was in a bad mood at this one conversation. And he always had a kind of a general bad mood. Steve was like the character in Peanuts that had the dark cloud, hovering over his head. He just, things would irritate him. He and Larry David would have had a lot in common. And he was complaining about New York. He hated living in New York. I hate living in New York. It's the worst place. It's so loud, it's noisy that it can't go anywhere, it's expensive. And I said, well, why do you live here? And he says, well, I have to write a lot of comics, and you have to be living in New York to get the amount of work that I need to get. If I left New York, I would get maybe half as much writing as I do. And I was like, gee, why do you need all that writing? And he says, well, because it's very expensive to live in New York. And I mean, I literally saw the light bulb go off over his head, the penny drop. 2 weeks later, he left. He moved to California. Bang, he was gone.